Hey, I think you figured it out.
I've been low-key freaking out, so I'm glad I figured it out.
You did great. How's your day going?
It's going good. I'm in the condensed course right now. So I've been in class since 10 a.m. this morning and like literally got off like 45 minutes ago. So
Oh no. You must be exhausted.
kind of, but I think just like I've had the puppy for a couple weeks now, and so she's gotten me on this schedule of like getting up at like really early. So I've been up since like 7:30 this morning and then going until 10, so she sleeps until 7:30. So I think my endurance has improved.
I have a little guy as well, and I mean, he's turning 4 now, but he is honestly like a newborn baby, so I totally resonate with those crazy schedules. So. So everybody, this is Ashley. I don't know if you want to do a little introduction and just tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Ashley, and I'm a CTRS recreation therapist in Ontario, Canada. I'm from a super small town called Bradford, if anyone knows where that is. Chances are nobody does, but that's okay. Um, so I wrote my CTRS exam in March of last year. I graduated from the therapeutic recreation program at Brock University in the fall of 2019. And I'm currently doing respite care as well as I am running Confessions of a Rec Therapist and doing a placement in hospice palliative care and finishing up my degree. I'm doing my Master's of Applied Gerontology.
Wow, you're busy. That's awesome. Good stuff. I guess that answers my next question is what setting you're currently working in. How long have you been doing the palliative care or the respite care for?
Yeah, so when I graduated, I was actually set up to enter retirement. And so I went into retirement. I love working with older adults. But then when the pandemic hit, the nursing home that I actually I started volunteering at and got into TRN,
Yeah.
I became COVID positive. And so I quit my job and went to support them. And I was with them until January of this year. But unfortunately, just with my school schedule and work schedule, it just wasn't working out when the new semester hit. And so I stopped working at the nursing home. Thankfully, at that point, they no longer had COVID. And I entered respite in beginning of March. So I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone. I have worked in basically every population but mental health. So I have a ton of experience in a lot of different areas. But as much as I love older adults and it's definitely my passion, I've noticed that I still have like a really deep love for working with individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities. And so I am back doing that and I absolutely love it. Like it's just like all the kids have so much energy and it's just great. I love it.
Yeah, I guess they would have a lot of energy. Eh? That's good. What inspired you to get started in recreation therapy?
Yeah, so I actually got involved. I learned about it, and I think I was in the 10th grade. My grandmother had dementia, and she moved from a retirement home to a long term care. Unfortunately, the process of moving her from retirement to long term care took a lot longer than we would have liked. And so she wasn't getting the care she needed, and she declined really quickly. And she was about an hour away. And so we were there as often as we could, but it's just the way it goes. They didn't have therapeutic recreation and all of that fun stuff. So it became an issue. So when we moved her to long-term care, I actually hadn't really heard her speak in a while. But the day we moved her in, I went with my mom and we were just like walking around the floor and she was kind of there, but like not really. She was in her
Yeah.
wheelchair. It was definitely like a difficult situation, not something I wanted to be in. I was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'd volunteered in that exact nursing home before, but not like on an ongoing basis. And so it was heartbreaking, but the recreation therapist actually walked up and she got down on her knees, and I was kind of like, what is happening? Like, speak to us at that point, so I had no idea who this person was. And she got down on her knees and went eye to eye with my grandmother and was like, hi, my name's blank. Like, who are you? It's nice to meet you. And in my head, I didn't say it out loud. I was kind of like what are you doing? Like, there's no one gonna respond. I haven't even heard her talk in a couple months. And without missing a beat, my grandmother introduced herself. I was like, hi, my name's Helen. And it blew my mind, like, instantly. And it was on a whim that I kind of fell in love. And I think my mom saw it in my eyes. And so she convinced me to go talk to her after the conversation. And I sat and talked with the rec assistant for a while and was just like talking to her about everything, about what she does. And I kind of just fell in love. And so my grandmother was there for 8 months before she passed away. She passed away in the beginning of December of that year. And in February, I started my high school co-op with the rec department. And it's been love ever since. Like, it's just a pure passion. Like I say, I'm one of the lucky ones that I found my career so young, and that I've been volunteering and working in it since I was in the 10th grade. But beyond that, it also is just like, I'm so in love. Like, when I go to work, I don't feel like I'm at work. I feel like I'm just like in a happy place and I'm in pure bliss. And like, every problem going on behind me or in my life doesn't matter at that time. My full focus is on them. And I'm just like, it's pure bliss. Like, I absolutely love the field. I think, again, I'm one of the ones that just stumbled across the profession, had no idea it even existed. When she introduced herself, I was like, what's a recreation professional? Like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I'm just like in my happy place.
That's incredible. I have no doubt that your grandmother probably had like the best last few months of her life, right? That's amazing. Yeah.
Around from the retirement home, and I can't
Yeah.
even them. They just obviously don't have the ability to care for someone with those needs. But yeah, she was the one that taught me that my grandmother could still communicate. I had worked with older adults and I wasn't uncomfortable by any means, but it got to the point that I was like getting other residents up and dancing, and I was volunteering at car washes and showing residents how to do things, and like things that I never would have expected myself doing. I always thought I was going to be a teacher. And so it was like a complete 180. But yeah, I just like, it was like an unbelievable experience. And I got to hear my grandmother sing for the last time, which again was something I thought I'd do. And so it was You Are My Sunshine. And so that's like my happy song is what I call it. So I have like Sunshine's Everywhere and You Are My Sunshine, but that's a connection I never would have made with like my grandmother had it like if the recreation professional hadn't shown me kind of what she was doing. And so I am like indebted to this profession in a sense that I got that. Like, me and my grandmother were close, but I never expected at the end for us to be that close when she wasn't able to speak to me. Like, we could communicate, but it was beyond words. And so it was just, yeah, I'm definitely happy that I found this.
Yeah, that sounds like a really amazing connection that you were able to make too, right? Yeah. It's definitely something special to be completely and like over your head in love with your job. And I totally resonate with that as well, right?
I say we're the lucky ones.
Yeah, yeah.
That it's a purposeful play. And again, like, I think a lot of us stumble, just somehow randomly come across this field, but it always seems to be like a happiness for us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any advice for people that are trying to build up their Instagram? Because I know that you've built up quite a really amazing community on here.
Yeah, I think part of it's, or my biggest piece of advice that I got from other people was just the outreach. Like, communicate with your followers. It's more than just the number of followers. It's how you communicate with them. And from there, it just grows. So commenting back when someone comments on your post, or going, like, even if you go into like the search feed and type in recreation therapy or type in any of those, type in CTRS and kind of follow people and they'll come to you. It's not an easy, and it's not going to happen overnight, that I can confirm. But the outreach, and even just reaching out to other Instagrams, I know I've given a shout out to a couple other ones, and I'm beyond thankful for the other professionals that have kind of taken me under their wing and given me a shout out here or there. And it grows that way. But I definitely think communication is like the number one. No one wants to follow someone that's not communicating with them. I say it's kind of like I have a friendship with my 1,000 plus followers, where they can come to me, right? Like, it's the conversations even in the DMs. Like when someone sends you a DM, like take the time to have that conversation with them, especially when it's someone new to the profession. We are a profession that has to advocate for ourselves, and if I can help somebody else who's new to the field or who is considering entering the field find their happy place in the field, then I think you're on the right track. So yeah, communication for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole community piece too, right? Like I find that there's such an incredible group of people on here that are, so willing to support one another and to talk about the field and, so open about sharing their personal stories and everything like that too, right?
Absolutely. I always say, like, we have a great community on here. We really do. And it is
Yeah.
like, we have our normal community, like within the associations and organizations, but when you come on Instagram, it's like a totally new thing. Like I'm probably in 6 or 7 different COVID-19 chats, just talking with other professionals in the field and getting to know them, getting to know their problems, offering help, asking for advice. Like I'm so unbelievably thankful to have found this side of our profession, and I advocate for individuals who want to join it, whether it's you have your own personal and you just want to be involved in these conversations, or you decide to join some of us in creating like an actual program dedicated to the field.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I know that you've created a blog as well. So I was hoping that you could chat a little bit about how you got to that point, and kind of what interests you in, your topics that you talk about on your blog.
Yeah. So I talk about a variety of different things. And so when I first started this Instagram, it was supposed to be just kind of like a fun little project on the side. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, if I'm being completely honest. And I think a lot of us are in that same boat when we first start. We know we want to make a difference and we know we want to have an impact. We just don't exactly know where we're going. And so
Yeah.
for me, it started as a fun side project and just a way to communicate with other professionals. I found that it was easier to find other Instagrams associated or to find other people when I had one designated. I also like to keep part of my life private, and so being able to still have that private account that I can be selective on who I bring in and having a public one at the same time. And so as it started, it kind of just evolved, and the next thing I knew, I had a website, and I all of a sudden decided to start sharing sides of my life that I don't normally share. And I think part of that came from one, just seeing other professionals speak out, but also seeing the lack of advocacy from that side. So for me, like a lot of my personal messaging comes from understanding that as a recreation therapist, you can have difficulties yourself, and understanding that every day is not going to be ideal and perfect. And as much as we are the happy people, as a lot of people like to call us, we have our bad days too. And that's okay. We're allowed to. You're allowed to have that moment where you need to go into your office and close the door and cry because the president passed away, or you need to walk away from a group session because you're so frustrated about something going on in your personal life, or you have mental health issues and you need to take a mental health day. And I think that's kind of been one of the biggest messages that I want to convey, because I do have my own issues. And I want other people to feel comfortable entering the field, whether they have those issues, or to have other professionals say, do you know what? Like, I have issues too, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing, and it doesn't mean that you still can't be in this field. I can still have fun and play and help people and have my own issues at the same time. And that was a messaging that unfortunately I just didn't really see us having. And so I wanted to kind of start that train and open that conversation and say, like, let's talk about it, because it is normal and it should be normal. And we don't always have to be the happy people.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up because I have a ton of respect for everything that you're doing on your blog, and I've read through quite a bit of what you've said. And I think that those conversations are so, so important, especially within our field when we are those, quote unquote, happy people. It's so important to note that, when we go home, we have our own issues as well. And, we come into the job every day with our past trauma and our, childhood things, and everyone kind of, they carry their weight differently, right? But it's so, so important to remember that every single person, whether you're, a client or you're the RT, like you have your own story, you're coming in with your own struggles, and that's okay too. Um, and advocating online is not an easy thing to do, especially on Instagram and everything. So putting yourself out there is really, really huge. And I just personally want to say thank you. I have so much respect for that.
Thank you. I mean, it took me a long time to get here. And so I think that's another message I want to get across, that I'm not expecting after this, or even after one of my posts, everyone to start sharing their own stories. It took me a long time to be able to say, like, I'm an abuse survivor. I had an eating disorder when I was younger. I have depression. I'm on medication for a mental illness. None of those things happened overnight for me. It was an internal battle, but also an external battle. I've gotten a lot of, unfortunately, like nasty messages, or I've had people flat out tell me that I can never work in the mental health industry or work in the healthcare field, period, because I have epilepsy, or because I have depression, or because I'm bipolar. And that took a lot out of me. There was a point where I genuinely considered walking away from the profession completely, because I didn't think I could be the fun person. I didn't think I could put on programs. And it was actually a moment, I was working as a rec assistant in retirement right after graduation, and I decided to start a mindfulness group. A lot of our residents, it was pre-COVID, but they were having issues in their life, right? Like, they, just like we do, they have their own issues. And so I decided to start a mindfulness group. And there was actually a resident who was going to refuse to go, and he went to my boss and he's like, I'm not going. She is too crazy. She is too much. There is absolutely no way that I can get anything beneficial out of this, because that's how they saw me. They saw me as the person that put on crazy costumes or threw parties or helped celebrate happy hour. Like, they never saw me as more than that. And so it was a very intimate group, but we actually had a conversation just about kind of what they wanted to get out of it. And I ended up opening up, not entirely, but sharing parts of me, just to help them understand that it was a safe place. And if I could share safely, so could they. And after it, he came up to me and he's like, I need to apologize, because you are so much more than you put on. And I am just so sorry for the things that you've gone through. And I just want you to know that I'm here for you, and we're here for you just as much as you're here for us. Because when you come in that door every day, you have a smile on your face, and you're laughing and you're giggling and you're making everybody so happy. But obviously there's times in your life, and I had never considered it, that you aren't happy. And so I just want to thank you for everything that you do. And it was in that moment that I was like, do you know what? We can be so many people as recreation therapists, and I think it's important that we show all sides of that. And so I'm just putting myself out there has not been an easy thing, but I'm hoping that by doing that, people are at least willing to go to their bosses and say, do you know what, I need a day off, or they can accept themselves. I've had a couple messages from my last one about medication. I've had a couple messages from people in the field saying, do you know what, this was my time, and I've decided to seek out therapy, or I've decided to talk to my doctor about going on medication, because that's not something we should be ashamed of.
Right.
Do so much for so many other people that it's so important that we're taking care of ourselves, and that self-care is a thing. I just can't stress that enough, whether that's to new students coming into the field, or people who are just entering, or people who have been in the field for 20 years. Self-care is just so, so important. And if we can't help ourselves, we can't help others. We're going to burn ourselves out. And unfortunately, burnout is a huge, huge problem in this field. And so I would like to be a part of, starting that conversation and kind of helping turn things around.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to jump back to a point that you had made about the judgment and stuff towards professionals that are meant to be making lives better for everyone else, and the judgment that goes towards them as people that also struggle with their their side problems. And it's so, so real, especially online. You know, it's like the minute that you kind of change your content geared towards, you know, self-care and things like that, you know, people are more afraid, and, you know, they have a lot to say about things that maybe they don't quite understand, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to say, you know, again, thank you so much for sharing your story so publicly, and everything that you're doing is really, really incredible. So
Thank you.
um, yeah. I know that you are pretty open about your epilepsy as well. And I was wondering if you could share how that kind of impacts your role as a therapist and how that presents itself.
Yeah, so I honestly, I got diagnosed when I was 19. It took about 5 years to diagnose me. There's a whole backstory if anyone wants to read it. Head over to my get into that. It took a really long time, and so when I was diagnosed, I was actually happy, believe it or not. I finally had an answer for the health issues I was having, and like I said, I was happy. I was about to start my first job. This was right after my first year of university, and I was about to start a job at a camp for people with intellectual disabilities, and it was all.
Okay.
It was ages 7 to 100, basically. It's called Shadow Lake Center. 100% should check it out. Area, love it. My favorite place in the world. But when I started there, I was only just getting on medication. So I got put on my first medication about mid-May, and I started that job end of May. And I got put on a medication that one of the side effects was that if you start getting a rash, it turns into third-degree burns, and you end up in the ICU in 2 days.
Okay.
I it's a rare thing, but I started getting a rash, and so my medication had to be changed. And so had already started my job, ended up having a couple seizures throughout the summer. And it was difficult. I had to advocate for myself, partly because they'd never had a staff that had active seizures at that point. That said, I am unbelievably thankful for the staff there and the healthcare team. Like, they were unbelievable. But it was a moment of realization for me that I can connect with the individuals that I was working with on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
Because again, like epilepsy, a lot of people don't know, but epilepsy is a really common condition. So once people get on medication, they kind of just stop talking about it. But unfortunately, for a lot of the individuals that do have active seizures, there are a good chunk of them that have intellectual or physical disabilities that prevent them from advocating for themselves. And so I managed to meet a ton of individuals who had seizures, and they got to, whether it was witness me have a seizure, or so we had a protocol list, and we have everyone listed. And there's one on the beach, there's one in the rec hall, there's one in the cabins, just so if something happens, we know exactly what to do. And I ended up going on the list. And so obviously, some of the time the campers will read them and they'll see it and they'll see my name. And so I had a couple campers come to me and be like, hey, can we chat? And we had a conversation about epilepsy, about seizures, about how terrifying it is, but also how there's like a small little epilepsy community within a community, and that I get to be a part of that. And I didn't really share a lot about my story, but they got to share theirs. And I felt like it was a moment of realization that I could connect with people. And so throughout the last 6 or so years of my career, there's been a lot of individuals that I've come across, whether it's professionals in the field or like residents or clients themselves. And I got to like have that conversation with them and be like, you don't have to be embarrassed. We had a couple residents who loved going to meetings in my past, but were really embarrassed to go out or had difficulties going out because they knew they were going to have a seizure, chances are, at least at one point. And so being able to say, like, I have seizures too. I'll be there. It's okay. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And so it's become a bigger thing that I never expected, but I get to connect and have that rapport with residents that a lot of other professionals don't get to have. And so it's kind of special in a way that I can share that with them and share my story, and they can share theirs, and I can kind of become a safe place for them and them not feel uncomfortable or worried. Or they can come to me and say, I think I'm going to have a seizure, or I want to go on an outing, but I'm really worried about having a seizure. And then my job is let's find ways that we can still take you, because my job is still for you to enjoy your life and for you to engage in recreational leisure activities. And if that means going on an outing, then we'll find a way. But I've also dealt with a lot of negativity. People saying I shouldn't be working in healthcare, even though come August I'll be 5 years seizure free. But it's a safety issue. Or, I am very open about it. And even though I'm not having seizures, I tend to tell those I'm working with that I have epilepsy, just in case something happens, right? Like I have call. And so I'll go meet with my nurse on the floor that I'm working on. Or I will, when I was working at the retirement home, I told my boss and I told a couple of other coworkers that I was constantly around. So if anything ever happened, they knew how to get to the protocol that was on my phone. So if something happened, they knew how to react. I've told a couple of clients and been like, you know what, if something happens, you should know too. But again, just like the mental health, there's a lot of people that are like, well, you shouldn't be working in the field. I mean, I have asthma, and throughout COVID, I was told I shouldn't be field. And my response was, you know what? I have the knowledge and the tools and the resources to make a difference. So I'm not going to go sit at home or to completely change my life. I'm so happy in the field I'm in. And a lot more positive has come from it than negative, and that includes sharing my story. So I've had a couple other rec professionals who have chosen not to share their story, which I totally respect. But they've come to me and said, I have epilepsy too, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate you advocating for individuals with disabilities in this field. And that goes beyond epilepsy, I think, too. I've had a couple other rec professionals come to me and say, I'm not necessarily a rec therapist, but I've been in the field of recreation and leisure, and a lot of my life I was told I couldn't enter the field because I had a disability, but you've shown that it's completely the opposite. We shouldn't be prevented based on our disabilities or based on our disorders from being able to live the life we want to live. And that's an important message that I try to convey beyond rec therapy, where if you want to be a teacher, if you have a disability, go for it. There shouldn't be anything stopping you. And if there is, I'm 100% willing to have your back and to help fight for you being able to get the advocacy that you need, or the education that the other people need for you to get that. And so that, I think it's even gone beyond that. I've had a couple companies reach out to me and been like, I want to hire someone with autism, but I don't think it's possible. And so I kind of help guide them through it, or to find the tools and resources, and just say, just because someone has a disability or disorder doesn't mean they can't do something. In fact, it's the complete opposite. It's the world that's the issue. The world is the one that creates the barriers. The people with the disorders and the disabilities are the ones trying to break them down. And so we just need to find a compromise to bring everything together. It shouldn't be as complicated as it comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I also just want to point out the irony in telling you that you cannot do your job because you have barriers, but your job is to help others do their best with their barriers.
I think in a way it's better. I'm not saying I am a better rec therapist because I have a disorder, but I think it helps me empathize more. Not even empathize more, passion, and it shows. And if I can kind of have those conversations with even people that don't have a disorder or don't have a disability, so they can kind of understand where the other people or other person's coming from. I'm almost an in-between. I understand the rec therapy side, but I also understand needing rec therapy. I myself have sought out rec therapy, and I've used it. I was hospitalized in high school for a suicide attempt, and recreation therapy was a part of my recovery. And so I'm one of the few that gets to see both sides and understand the true value of what we do. And if I can advocate for that in any way, or help somebody get the education they need to be an advocate, then I think I'm doing my best anyway.
Yeah. And I wanted to jump back to that as well, is that having your own personal experiences with, suicide attempts and mental health issues and trauma and all that really makes you, I truly believe makes you a stronger rec therapist. It gives you that empathy side. It gives you that understanding of grief, of difficulty that, not going through it yourself it's a different perspective, right?
Absolutely.
And rec therapy as a treatment for yourself gives you that personal understanding of how valuable it is and how life-changing it can really be for somebody that's struggling.
And I think I almost wish not that every rec therapist had a disorder, had a disability, that they could understand the true value. Because it's a lot different when you use it yourself. And so the way I convey it is that acts of self-care are kind of similar. I mean, it's not necessarily you seeking out rec therapy, but it's you doing a lot of the interventions that you would be using with somebody else. And so if you're using mindfulness, you're kind of seeking out rec therapy in a way. You're just being your own rec therapist. And that's okay too. If that's what works for you, that's what works for you. You don't have to have a disorder or a disability, in my mind, to need rec therapy. Rec therapy is just a way to help provide well-being, and to improve your emotional stability and your physical capabilities. And we're like a step above. People already have like a ground level of where they can go. We're just that extra step to get them there. And I think anybody can use that. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. So as much as we tend to be in that field, I think that like the CEO of a company could use us just as badly as somebody who has a disability.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing too is, and I don't know if you can resonate with this, is when you seek professional help, I find the first thing that they ask is, oh, like, what do you do to help yourself feel better? And you're like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I already know that, there's these recreation therapy activities that can help me. I'm already ahead of it. I got you. Don't even worry about it. I'm there already.
Yep.
You already have that firsthand knowledge. It's like you don't really need to do the whole.
I think it's almost a problem for us because we don't necessarily listen as well as we should.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
When I've sought out therapy, where I've been like, I'm a therapist. You don't have to give me that attitude. Like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're going to say before you even say it. Stop. Almost a barrier, which I think is why it's so important that we do take care of ourselves. And if we need therapy, we actually seek it out, because we kind of lie to ourselves in a way, and we pretend that when we're at work, we are okay. But unfortunately, when we go home, there's still problems that exist. We can't always be that go lucky, always smiling, making other people laugh. We are so much more than that. We're people with problems and with issues and with concerns, and with health conditions, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but you said it for me, so that's great. Definitely putting barriers up for ourselves without realizing it sometimes. Yeah. All right, I'm going to switch channels here. What is your favorite part about what you do?
That's a good question.
Among the thousands of things.
I want everything. From the blog side, I think it's the advocation, and being able to just have a platform that I can share not only about our field, but help educate other professionals on what it's like to live with a disorder, and to advocate for those that might be entering the fields that feel like it may not be for them. But on the professional side of it, I think it's the little moments that you have. So for me, end of life care is really important, and I love being a part of it. I'm one of the few that can thankfully deal with end of life care. I know it's definitely not for everyone, but I've been there and held that resident's hand when their family couldn't during COVID. And I have hugged that family member pre-COVID and been like, we're going to get through this together. And I've been that person that's gone in those end of life care moments or end of life moments and said, like, what do you need for this to be a good moment to the resident? And so it's those little moments, especially in end of life care, that I can help make that person's end of life experience just a little bit better. It doesn't have to be a lot. In some cases, it's just holding their hand. In other cases, it's finding a specific hymn that they want played on the iPad, or helping that family member through that grief process because they want to be in that room, but they're scared to be in that room alone. And, maybe they're the only daughter of that person. And so it's like, okay, do you know what? Then we're going to go into this room together, and I'll stand in the corner, but I'm there if you need me. Or walking that loved one out at the end. I've had a couple family members who unfortunately just the way the coroner works and stuff, in some cases the body is in our home for 12 hours and the family doesn't want to stay there the whole time. So there's been a couple times where I've volunteered myself and been like, I'm not going to leave your loved one until they're gone, and that's walking them to the van and making sure that they leave in a peaceful way. And it's those moments beyond what we actually do. It's those going above and beyond that I don't have to do, but I have that rapport with those family members, or I just know the difference it's going to make. Whether I just entered that home a week ago and I don't know the family, but they need that extra support, or in some cases I live in a small town and I work in a small town. And so I know a lot of the individuals. So I've had friends whose grandparents were passing away during COVID, and understanding that confidentiality, but still being able to support them through it. I had a resident whose granddaughter I actually went to high school with, and she unfortunately died by suicide last year. And so I just sent her flowers, and she went to my boss, or my old boss, and said, can you send her a text and just tell her how much I appreciate it? And I didn't have to do those things, but I knew in that moment that it was going to make that much of a difference. I knew I was having a hard time, and we hadn't been friends. We were still friends, but we weren't best friends like we were in high school. And so just those little moments that you can help someone through a grief moment, or even just teaching them how to communicate with their loved one who has dementia and is screaming in their face, or knowing when to tell a family, okay, maybe you should walk away for a couple of minutes. And it's the little moments. It's not the big programs for me. It's the tiny little things that honestly some of the time would go unnoticed, that I just appreciate beyond belief, and that I'm so happy that I get to be a part of, or I get to help someone through. That was a long answer.
No, that's incredible. I feel like palliative care is one of those areas of rec therapy that isn't really talked about a lot. I think that long-term care, there's lots of conversations around different programming and navigating the challenges of dementia and long-term care. But as far as palliative care goes and end-of-life care, those are really, really difficult situations that, I personally have never been involved in, but I don't even know that I could. So, cheers to you for that, because I don't know that I could do that. I imagine that would be really, really difficult, especially when you have those small towns with those, close-knit relationships. And that would be really, really challenging.
It's funny because there's only a couple of us that I have seen that kind of do end-of-life care that have rec therapy blogs. And so I'm thankful for the ones that do exist, because they've kind of helped taught me how to advocate for it. But like you said, it's actually an issue how little we are involved in end-of-life care, especially in actual hospice palliative care facilities. In a lot of them, they don't even have rec therapy. And I think that's something that needs to change. And that's kind of a way for us to continue evolving the career and continuing to grow, because I think we should be involved, and I think we should be there. We can make all the difference. We make that difference in long-term care. So what's the difference if we're in hospice palliative? So I'm actually doing a placement there this summer, and that's kind of one of the things I want to talk to them about, and just say, I know it's not necessarily a thing now, but here's kind of the benefits of what we do, and maybe in the future we can talk about it, or I can help advocate for it, or you can talk to other places, and just get us known. And I don't know why we aren't in that field yet, whether it's just a sign of the times and we still need to keep evolving, or again, there's just not necessarily a lot of us that are comfortable with it. And that's okay too, right? We each have our own little niche in terms of, I'm thankful that my niche just happens to be pretty much everything. My passion, just based on my history, is with gerontology and dealing with the geriatric population. But hospice palliative care goes beyond that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people forget is that, there's 3-year-olds in hospice palliative care. facilities, and that's not something we necessarily think about. So I'm hoping, as hospice palliative care is kind of like us, they're continuing to evolve, and so hopefully that's something we'll see in our futures, whether it's us being the professionals or just being a part of helping support individuals and getting into that field.
Yeah, rec therapy would be so, so important, especially in those, final days or final hours. Like, why wouldn't you want to enjoy your life until the very last second, whether it's, like you said, singing a hymn or doing whatever's meaningful for that person and what they enjoyed throughout their life, right? Like you said, I'm very surprised as well that that's not already a thing, but also identifying that this is probably one of the first conversations that I've had around that. So, yeah, definitely keep me updated on that, advocating for your hospice, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really incredible, though. I know that you just recently started selling items on, is it Redbubble? And I have the link, and if it's okay with you, I'm just going to drop it in here for people to look at. Just because I was looking at some of it this week and it looks awesome. I'm super excited for you.
69 designs. I've been a busy bee. It's actually been something that's been in the process for a couple months now. I just never had the courage to do it. It was kind of nerve-wracking one because there's already a lot of great shops in and around the field, and I didn't want to take away from them. But at the same time, I just love creating. So it's honestly kind of become a therapy for me, just creating. Yeah. I don't care if anyone buys any at this point. If you do, thank you. But you don't I don't know. It's just become a thing. And so I'm up to 69 designs now, and I love every second of it. And to those of you that have bought something, thank you, because there's been a couple of you. Yeah, it's new for me, and it's a little nerve-wracking because I'm not really sure what I'm doing, to be so bear with me for those of you that follow me and are along for my journey and ride, but we'll get there.
Are you creating each item as they come in as orders, or how are you this is my side business question, but how are you navigating that?
Yeah, Redbubble's nice in the sense that I just create the designs and I choose what it goes on, and then they do the rest. So
I didn't know that. That's really neat.
So it's really great. It's a lot of time, so I can just spend my time creating the items. I've had a lot of people come to me and be like, I want to see this happen. So I'm working on those designs. So it's kind of cool that they do all that side of it, and then they just keep you updated on when an order comes in and then when they ship it out. So to those of you that have made an order, I got a couple notifications they're going out. So it's happening really quickly. Nice in that sense. It's a great way to kind of enter if you want to enter that kind of side of it, whether you want to stop, you just upload your design, and they put it on items and then send it out for you.
Wow, I didn't know that. I actually just recently found Redbubble because I was looking for rec therapy stuff actually for my boss, and yeah, they have a really, really wide range of different stuff. This is not sponsored, by the way, so I didn't know that though. That's really, really neat. My thoughts are around that is within my adult day program at work, we're doing a lot of activity kits for seniors, so that could be an option for some of the items that we're putting in those kits. So I may contact you with a few design ideas.
Go for it. More than honestly, like I said, it's kind of become my break in between assignments and stuff that I have to do right now. Like I said, I've been working on a lot of designs. There's a lot more in the works. So I'm estimating by the time I hit 1 week, there'll probably be about 100 designs. They go beyond rec therapy. I am kind of branching out, and part of that just comes from my own epilepsy journey, my own experience dealing with dementia and mental health and therapy themselves, and just finding ways to kind of advocate for our field. I think the more shops within our field, the better. More people will see it when they're searching for things. But yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to kind of help people create designs that they want to see, whether it's for work or whatnot. I'm having a blast doing it. So Just an extra, I won't lie, my percentages are super cheap because it's more for me than for other people, I think, at this point. That may change down the road, but yeah, I love it.
That's really, really great. That's good to know. um, how has COVID changed things for you?
I mean, I quit a job
Yeah.
to work at another one. It was nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't on a COVID positive floor, but I was in a building that had COVID, who had tons of staff and tons of residents. We were actually one of, it's hard to put, but one of the lucky ones in the sense that we got it contained fairly quickly. Unfortunately, we did lose a couple residents or lose a few residents, but so that was difficult to deal with. The programming itself was difficult when I was there in high school, and when I was volunteering in my early ages of university, I was obviously doing very like hands-on and like outgoing programs. I was volunteering, my church goes in, and so I was a part of that, like engaging because I knew a lot of the residents and helping create those connections, or just like helping volunteer with the church. But now it became, I mean, residents had to be spaced out, and because we were a COVID positive facility, a lot of the programs weren't even an option. Trying to run programs with zero equipment is a lot harder than it seems. And that's part of the reason why I can't even remember, it was like last March or April, I created a list of alternative activities, and it was published by TRO, and it's kind of been circulated, and people sent me ideas, and I uploaded them, ways that we can do minimal contact to no contact activities. So that was kind of one of the things that I ended up doing that I never expected having to do. A lot of FaceTimes, a ton of FaceTimes. It helps me value the communication with family members because it became a lot more important. They weren't allowed to enter the home. The mask barrier has been fun. The amount of residents who have yelled at me and told me to take that thing off my face because they can't hear me, unreal. But it makes for some pressure, so you got to go with it.
Yeah.
I never expected to do a master's degree online, so that's been a total change as well. Everything, like, it just amazes me, but it also amazes me how fast our profession adapted. I think pandemic could have killed our career 120%. I think it could have, but we fought and we ensured that we were on those lists and we were advocating for ourselves, and we got that pandemic pay, or some of us did, some of us didn't. But just the way we came together as a profession to be like, this is not going to be the end of this. We are going to be so much more, and we're going to come out stronger on the other end. And I think we already have, and this pandemic's not even over. But the communication among the field has been, I think, like the biggest thing for me. I always had communication with people in the field, and I was talking to them and chatting, but like the amount of like group chats that popped up, or people asking for advice, people admitting that like this was really difficult and they didn't know what to do. The online platform surpassed the Facebook groups.
Yeah.
I just like am blown away. But I think in a way, like everything's changed, but in a good way. I wish we could do more. Like, I think there's a lot of programs that would be beneficial to our clients that we can't do. So things like going on outings.
Yeah, the outings is a big thing that everyone's been really talking about. Yeah.
But I think it's forced us to like find better ways of doing things, or at least different ways of doing things. We've been really adaptable, and I think that's been super important. So yeah, long answer, but short answer, I think everything's changed.
Everything is different. Yeah. Crystal had actually mentioned in our chat that she's found that it's really increased her ability to connect one-to-one with certain clients, and she's gotten a better understanding of, you know, the things that they like and the things that they don't like, and, you know, that mutual respect for the profession and the work that we're doing. But yeah, COVID has just ripped through and just changed absolutely everything as far as our programming goes as well. We haven't seen our clients in over a year. So, you know, a lot of that virtual programming that we unfortunately have not been able to do. And a lot of other adult day programs across the GTA and everything have been really, really successful with their Zoom programs. So that's really great as far as, advocating for the profession goes, but it's way more difficult than I think, it looks on paper.
Way more difficult than I think people outside of the field know. We obviously know how difficult it is, but I think in a way it's been good. But again, yeah, like I think there's a lot of us that are just craving normalcy at this point.
Yeah.
As much as the good that's come from it, it's like, okay, like can we just have a group program again, like where we don't all have to sit 6 feet apart and wear a mask, and they can't understand me and they can't understand. And I'm so tired of Zoom. It's not even funny. Like I just
Yeah,
don't get it.
that Zoom fatigue, right? I don't know if you know anybody that's in engineering or anything with electronics, but somebody needs to create a mask that has like a built-in microphone. I don't know why nobody's done that yet, but that would solve like a million problems.
Watch Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah,
So have you seen the new episodes where they have like that full, but they have like a mic in it?
for them to like still talk as actors.
I want one of those because at least
Yeah,
it like, and then maybe, I don't know if there's like a volume button on it and we can just turn it up, like something along those lines. I don't know, but yeah, that would be a great invention. You should take that and run because you would make a lot of money.
something that's like sanitizable too, so it's not like, you know. Oh, yeah, it's brutal. I feel like I've said this half a million times, but I really, really hope that this is all over soon and we can stop having these conversations. But in
Please.
the meantime, oh my goodness. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add or anything you want to.
Not that I can think of. I mean, I think one thing that I do want to say, just as like a shout out to everyone that has kind of like advocated for me in getting into this field. I've had a few mentors along the way, and I think to new people getting into this field, that's probably the best way to go is to find somebody or a couple people in this field who know what they're doing to help guide you. Like that's my biggest takeaway. I have a blog post coming actually. Advice to new TR students. But that's one of the biggest things that I want to convey to new people in the field is to find a mentor. I was thankful that I have a couple. One of them is actually currently watching. So Sadie was actually my like preceptor, I guess you could say, for when I did my high school co-op in the nursing home, and she was actually there. So a lot of my co-op was done working on my grandmother's floor because I knew the residents, but it was really difficult because she had just passed away. And one of the difficulties I had was specifically going into my grandmother's old room and meeting that resident. I had a really, really difficult time with that. And she kind of helped guide me through it and was there to help me through the process. But even like my internship supervisor, Katie, was unbelievable. And if you can keep in touch with those people and keep them in your back pocket, they make great references for applying to jobs, but they're also just great people to have to bounce ideas off of and to have those conversations with. So to anyone new in the field, 100% keep in touch with those people, build your network, even people outside of the field. I think in a way we kind of isolate ourselves. And
Yeah.
talk to those nurses or to talk to those PSWs that have been in their field and understand their side of it. Because if we want them to understand our side and we want them to understand rec therapy, we need to first understand the value that they bring to the team and show that we care about them, or why would they care about us?
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. I definitely agree with that. My boss has been my saving grace over the last few years. I think I have learned more from her than I have in school, and that's no, slam on my professors or anything, but those one-to-one conversations about things that are going on and whatnot are really, really important, and you learn a lot from bouncing ideas off of them and, having those real conversations about things that are happening, right?
The theory only goes so far.
Exactly.
It's talking to people who are in the field or going into the field yourself and kind of engaging with them. But also to the preceptors or to the internship supervisors to take a risk. I was the only high school student that Sadie had, that she let me have programs on the actual calendar. And I think in itself that fueled me like so much passion, because I got to engage with the residents, and they saw my name on the calendar, and I became someone important, and the other rec staff saw me important. That entire team was just so welcoming, and I didn't feel like a student. I felt like I was one of them, and I was just a high school student. And so still one of my only, oh, I love you, Katie. So it's on both sides. Like, it's on the students, but it's also on the internship supervisors or the preceptors or whatever word you want to use for them, to take those risks and to push those students out of their comfort zone. I don't think putting my name on the calendar would have been something I chose to do. The right help, I was guided in the right direction. I'm now like thriving in this field, and I'm super excited after this job to land a job that allows me to have an internship student so that I can start teaching and kind of guide my students like I've been guided. But yeah, I can't stress enough that it's on both sides to build a network and keep those students. I think we kind of undervalue students in a way, but you guys are the ones like coming out of the field fresh with these new ideas and these new thoughts, and you know the new research. So like, use those people to your advantage. Like, bring them onto your team, trust them, let them try those new programs that you've never heard of, but that may be super beneficial, or maybe some of the best programs you've ever seen. Like, we're a growing field, and we need to be able to advocate for everybody, and that's old professionals and new.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's incredible. That's awesome. I'm so glad you had such a great experience as well, and developed that great relationship with your supervisor. That's awesome.
Definitely hoping everyone gets that in their future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Ashley.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. A Zoom or an Instagram live out of the way, so I know what I'm doing. So thank you for that.
I'll set up a training session with a few people, and you guys will be good to go.
Honestly, you should give, like, you helped me a lot. Let's put it that way.
Well, I hope you have a great night.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.